Welcome back everyone. Today it's a bit of a special video. We're gonna talk War of the Spark and we're gonna talk about the decks which I think are the most likely to be a thing. I know I hate when people do that, but I just did it. Let's just jump into the decks, shall we? Yes, we're gonna list these decks from most likely to least likely to be a thing when War of the Spark comes out, at least in my opinion. But this first deck, I feel very confident that it will be a thing when War of the Spark comes out. There's like 0% chance that this deck archetype will not be a thing, and that archetype is Grixis control, because Grixis control is so damn good against planeswalkers. It's insane. They have so many ways to deal with planeswalkers. This is the first way. And by the way, I'm going to list all these cards from most likely to least likely to appear in this archetype, and I've also included a couple of non-War of the Spark cards, just, you know, for a brief mention about these cards will probably also be in this deck. Anger's Rampage deals with everything. It deals with artifacts, deals with creatures, deals with planeswalkers. Okay, of course, most likely gonna deal with either creatures or planeswalkers, but it's so nice to have both on the same card for only 2 mana. It's insane. It's good against aggro, it's good against control, it's good against everything. And finally, you have a card which you can put in your deck and not be afraid that it's a dead card against control. Very good. So, next card. Bolas Dragon God. I know that a lot of people have the problem with the mana cost here. It's 1 blue and 3 black and 1 red. I don't think it's gonna be a problem, in my opinion. It's gonna be running mostly lands which produce black, and there's gonna be some black blue lands and some black red lands. It's gonna be fine, in my opinion. It's gonna be fine. Of course, once every blue moon, you're gonna have a, you know, very bad draw, bad mana draw, and you're gonna get screwed over by Bolas. But for the most part, he's gonna work, I think. And he's so darn strong. He's so strong that it's worth it. It's like the Grixis Teferi, in my opinion. In some cases, it's better. In some cases, it's worse. The first ability it has is a passive ability. Bolas Dragon God has the loyalty abilities of all other planeswalkers on the battlefield. So this kind of makes sure that he's the best on the board, in my opinion. Then you have the +1. You draw a card, each opponent exiles a card from their hand or a permanent they control. This is what makes Bolas good. This is what gets him ahead of Teferi, in my opinion. Of course, he has all the loyalty abilities. That is very good. But the +1 is just, in my opinion, stronger than Teferi. You're not always gonna have something to do with the mana that you get from Teferi, but Bolas' ability is always relevant. You draw a card, it's always good, and your opponent loses something, it's always good. If they have cards in their hand, they're gonna lose that. If they have things on the battlefield, they're gonna lose that. So they're always losing something. -3 is very strong. It's not as good as Teferi. Yes, I know. That's where Bolas loses out, is with the minus ability. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. Teferi tucks something away. It can deal with enchantments, can deal with indestructible stuff. Bolas cannot, but it's very strong. It's, in most cases, it's gonna be what you need. You just put this down as a removal for 5 mana, and then just keep plussing him. If he sticks on the board, you will just win the game, this guy. -8, each opponent who doesn't control a legendary creature or planeswalker loses the game. In my opinion, this is just you win the game. Of course, there's gonna be weird cases where they have a planeswalker which you can't get rid of, and you don't win, but in most cases, just you win the game, in my opinion. Augur of Bolas is another very likely card, because there's gonna be mostly instants and sorceries. You might not have seen this card. This has been in standard before, but it's rotated out, and now it's come back again. When Augur Bolas enters the battlefield, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal an instant or sorcery card from among them and put that card into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. In any order. So this card is very good in this archetype, because we're mostly running instants and sorceries, mostly running removals, counter spells and stuff like that. And Augur Bolas just fits perfectly. It's a very good body of 1/3. It can block against the mono reds, the mono whites, anything against, like, except like mono green, where arguably a very bad blocker, I would say. Next card. Liliana's Triumph. 1 colorless, 1 black. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. If you control Liliana Planeswalker, each opponent also discards a card. This card is amazing because it's an instant. That's what makes it so damn good. Because most these control decks, you want to keep up like counter mana, and you want to have Liliana's Triumph. You want to be able to answer anything on their turn, and depending on what they play, you will have to pick the right answer. So it just fits perfectly into this archetype. So that's why I think it's going to be a thing. It's very likely to see play. Search for Azcanta. Yeah, it's like Augur Bolas. You're probably gonna be one of them, and it's not super exciting to talk about because you've already seen so much of these cards. We're just gonna jump to the next one. Bedevil. It's another card which just fits perfectly. We already have the what's called Angrath's something that you saw in the beginning, which did pretty much the same thing, except they get to choose. Here you get to choose, but it doesn't deal with things which are indestructible. This is very, very likely to see play. It's just such an amazing versatile card and can deal with planeswalkers, which will be relevant, as we will see as we progress down the list of decks. Next card is Nickel Bolas Ravager. Also not super exciting, but it's very, very good. When it enters the battlefield, it immediately gains your value in that your opponent discards a card. It's very, very threatening on the board, because it always threatens to flip, and if you flip Bolas, you most likely win. It's a good body, it's a 4/4 flyer, it deals with everything in the Drake's deck, for instance. It can block that. It can block most things, and it's a threat in by itself. You need it for that. Next card, Liliana Dreadhorde General. I wanted to put this higher on the list, but in all honesty, the more I look at this card, it's very, very good, but it's 6 mana. And 6 mana cards, historically, they're almost impossible to play. You can play this as a one-of. It's my conclusion for this card. But you probably can't put more into the deck, because it's going to screw you over so many times. It's very, very strong. It doesn't fit perfectly into this archetype because you're probably not going to have too many creatures, maybe an Ogre Bolas and maybe Nickel Bolas, but except for that, you're not going to have too much. But the -4 is very, very strong. Each player sacrifices 2 creatures, which like a mini board sweep, and then you just create value every turn from the black zombie creature tokens. Maybe it will see play, maybe it won't see play, but it's a fun card, and I'm very happy that he printed it. Next card, Kaya's Ghost Form. Now this is a card I probably should have put higher, the more I think about this card. This card is insane. This card is insane for 2 reasons. Enchant creature or planeswalker control. We've never seen us being able to enchant planeswalkers in this way before. And then when enchanted permanent dies or is put into exile, return that card to the battlefield under your control. What's so amazing about this is that it protects against exile. So Lava Coil, Kaya's Wrath, anything that people put in here doesn't matter. It will return. It doesn't matter if you try to take it over with a hostage taker, for instance. Anything the Kaya's Ghost Form protects against. The only thing which it does not protect against is if they have a what's called something that takes over, like a oh, I don't remember. There's like blue cards which do this, but it doesn't matter too much. If they do this, you can just kill your opponent's creature and it will return under your control because you still own the enchantment. So yeah, it's insane. It's insanely good. And you can put this on an Ogre Bolas, you can put this on a Nickel Bolas, you can put this on a Nickel Bolas Dragon God. You can anything in this deck that you put this on, it will be amazing because it just protects it against everything. So yeah, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. Next card, The Lost. 1 colorless, 1 blue. I don't know that this really fits into this archetype, but it's a very good creature. It's a creature that draws you a card. There's essentially no drawbacks if you just play it as a one-of. When it gets targeted, it shuffles it into a library, so you could even maybe create a loop with this where you can never deck yourself. I don't know if that's relevant, but it's very strong. I think this will be more played in a Bant list that we're gonna have a look at later on, but it's a very, very solid card. Next card. Okay, we've seen them all. What do you think? Let's just jump into the next deck. The next deck then is a deck which I think people are gonna hate. Initially, people are gonna be like, wow, it's a new deck. Oh, it's super interesting. It's Super Friends. Yay. And then people after 2 weeks are gonna be hating this deck. It's gonna be super duper strong, and it's definitely gonna see play. And it's Bant Super Friends. This is the first card. And again, I'm listing these from, in my opinion, most likely to appear in that deck archetype to least likely. Teferi Time Reveler, I'm surprised they printed yet another amazingly strong Teferi. It's like, why? Why did you have to do this? Well, they apparently had to do it. Maybe it's for the monies, I have no idea. Maybe it's a lizard snakes. Just, you know, pulling the strings as wizards, I don't know. But Teferi Time Reveler is 1 colorless, 1 white, and 1 blue. Each opponent can cast spells only anytime they could cast a sorcery. Decent to good, not super duper relevant. Maybe in the control mirror it's pretty good against Grixis, for instance. Until your next turn, you may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. And again, it's not amazing. It's mostly good with Kaya's Wrath, which I don't think is gonna be run in this deck. It's gonna be another card, which we're gonna have a look at just a moment. -3. Return up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment to its owner's hand. Draw a card. This is what makes this good. So essentially, you play this. You put something back in their hand because you just want to anti-tempo them. If you're up against an aggro deck, you just want to anti-tempo them. So you do this. You play the Teferi. You put their creature back, their Steamkin or whatever it is that they have put out in their hand. You draw a card. If Teferi survives, great. If it doesn't, well, it was just a removal. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if he dies. It's just, if he sticks around, he just gives you a bonus, and at some point it's gonna -3 again, so it's just gonna threaten to do that again. He's insane in every possible way, and will definitely see play. And it's not dead against other decks either. If they have artifacts or enchantments, it's good against that also, so it's just insane. Next card, of course, Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. We don't need to speak about this guy too much. I think I'm getting triggered just by seeing this guy face. Because you're seeing it from like down below. He's just like, so cocky when you look at it. He's like, I'm the best in the world. Okay, this not so good quality scan, one could say. It's Gideon Blackblade. It's very hard to read here, so I'm going to translate what this guy is. He's a 1 colorless and 2 white planeswalker for 4 loyalty. That's pretty good in by itself. And whenever it's your turn, he's a 4/4 indestructible human soldier and prevent all combat damage or all damage dealt to him during your turn. So this means that he's insane. He's a 4/4, and then he can +1 and up to 2 target creatures you control. Get your choice of vigilance, lifelink, or indestructible until end of turn. This means that he's essentially is a 4/4 indestructible lifelink that can give something else lifelink also. This card is also insane. Means I'm so surprised they printed it for 3, but yeah, that's how it is. It's very strong, and it will definitely see play. Then it says -6 just to, you know, add salt into your opponent's already big wounds, probably. Exile target, non-land permanent. Yeah, it's just solid. And you're gonna plus this a couple of times, and if they don't deal with it, you're gonna threaten to take away anything for them. So, yeah, it's just insane, just insanely good. It's gonna be the best creature for 3. The only thing that could probably compete with this in the 3 mana slot is History of Benalia. It's the only card which is like maybe better than this because it has to eat 2 removals. Yeah, it's very good. Vivian's Arcbow is a card which I very much think we'll see play in this deck if they go with a route where they have a lot of creatures. If they don't go with a creature route, then maybe it won't see play because it's so strong with a couple of creatures. Most notably Fblipithip and Mystic, the guy with counters, because you can use this as a counter spell. And late game, I mean, you're gonna draw a lot of lands, and you're just gonna be able to turn your lands into creatures, which is amazing. And that's something that Bant could really do well here. Here's Fblipithip, and he's here just because the interaction with the Arcbow, which I think we're gonna see. Because it's very good, you pay maybe 4 mana, and you can either counter something, or you can put in a Fblipithip and draw 2 cards. Very nice. Vivian Reed, very likely if you have a lot of creatures that Vivian Reed is gonna be here. So yeah, this is kind of super friends. All the good planeswalkers. Vivian Champion of the Wilds is another card which might see play. I would say now we're getting to the very, maybe not so likely, because there's so many good cards. There's gonna be so damn many good cards in Bant Super Friends that are gonna compete for spots. So I don't know how many of these amazing planeswalkers that will even fit into the deck, honestly. You may cast creature spells as though they had flash. That's very good. And +1 until your next turn, up to 1 target creature gains vigilance and reach. That's bad. That's very bad. But the -2 is decent. Look at the top 3 cards and exile 1 face down. And for as long as it remains exiled, you may look at that card and may cast it if it's a creature card. So it's essentially like the 5 mana Vivian ability, but it's for -2. You can maybe get up 2 searches. It's strong. It's really strong. It can search for, if you have Mystic Snakes, not Mystic Snakes, something else. If you have counter creatures, utility creatures, this fits perfectly. I don't know that Bant Super Friends are even gonna run creatures. They don't have to, but if they run creatures, then Vivian Champion of the Wilds might be a one-off, I think. Then we have Time Wipe, and this is another, you know, the reason this kind of ties the deck together. If you run creatures in Bant, then this will definitely be played, I think. You can return a creature you control to its owner's hand. This works also very well with Teferi, because you can play this during your opponent's turn, and you can return your Mystic Snake or whatever it is that you played out. It's not called Mystic Snake, it's called something else Mystic, but you know, the creature that counters. Return that to your hand, destroy all your opponent's creatures, and next turn, here it is, Frilled Mystic. You play this guy again and just counter again. It's gonna be horrible, absolutely horrible to play against. Yeah, Frilled Mystic also very likely to see play in that type of archetype. A Johnny Greathearted. I think it's a good planeswalker, honestly, and I think it's probably gonna be a one of in that Super Friends kind of deck, because it's very strong to have many planeswalkers, because it's hard to deal with all these planeswalkers because you can't have enough creatures to attack into all of them. So for that reason, I think it might be a one of. But even though it's a very strong planeswalker, I think that the other planeswalkers are just stronger. That's the. It's not that Ajani is bad. It's just that the other planeswalkers are just so insanely strong in Bant right now that. Maybe there's no place for Johnny, unfortunately, even though it's good. Then we have Emergency Zone, which might be a thing that they want to do to be able to play all their planeswalkers, not all of them, but a few of them at instant speed. Might be a trick that they want to include maybe one of them or something. Interplanar Beacon is another card that they maybe want. If they play a lot of planeswalkers and they have different mana costs, then maybe this is a card for them. I don't know, maybe. And then we come to Tolarian Academy. Isn't it? From that, I mean, it kind of looks like him. Kind of very, very much looks like him. Maybe it's just me. 2 colorless, 2 green, and 1 white. It's a legendary creature, Elf Scout. This card is decently solid, but I think it's probably not going to be played because there's so many other alternatives. Just to clarify here, that's why it's last on the list. When Tolsmere Friend to Wolves enters the battlefield, create Voya Friend to Elves, a legendary 3/3 green and white wolf creature token. When a wolf enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 3 life, and you may have that creature fight up to 1 target creature an opponent controls. So this is, if it's played, it's probably as a one-of, and it's good in very specific situations. It gains your life, which is always nice. You get 2 3/3 bodies on the board, which is very good because it's hard to deal with both of them, and you get a fight off, so you can kill something small. I don't know, like a Pyromancer or something. Something on the board. This is a solid creature, but again, there's so many good cards in Bant. I don't know that this even fits in, because you only have, 60 slots in your deck. What are you gonna take out lands and get land stalled? It's like, there's already so many good cards, and that's the only problem for Tolsimir here. Too many good cards that I don't think that this will get too much play. And then we're back. Let's just go to the next deck, shall we? So now we get into the third deck, and the third deck is my first, I would say, speculative deck. Up until now, the 2 decks before, the Bant deck and the Grixis deck, they've been like 100%. They're definitely gonna appear. It's like, there's no chance that they're not gonna appear. But this deck is a little bit more fringe, but it's very, very likely to see play because there's so many cards supporting it. And I'm talking about not Grixis Control, this is Jund. And the most likely card, coincidentally, to appear in this deck is Angrath's Rampage, because it's so versatile. But we're gonna go into the more, more interesting cards. One is Dreadhorde Arcanist. When Dreadhorde Arcanist attacks, you may cast target instance or sorcery card from your graveyard with command mana cost less than or equal to Dreadhorde Arcanist's power from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that card would be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. Just a very, very cheap way of playing cards for 1 in your graveyard. Every time it attacks in, you play something for 1 in your graveyard, and it's insane. It's insanely strong. I think this will be even see play in Legacy. Yeah. They maybe even have done a mistake with this card. Is how strong I think this card is. Next card, Dreadhorde Butcher. This is here because of the combo that we're gonna see here. We're gonna see, probably if this gets played, we're gonna see the Dreadhorde Butcher Collision Colossus Thud combo. Very, very, very likely, because it's a turn 3 kill combo. You're gonna get it off from time to time, and this is kind of a deck which can punish decks like Super Friends because it's so fast. It can kill them before they get out their first Teferi even. It has haste. It's a 1/1. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, put a +1/+1 counter on Dreadhorde Butcher. When Dreadhorde Butcher dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So if you play this turn 2, you attack in, you've dealt 1 damage. Next turn, you attack in again, you cast Collision Colossus, you deal 6 damage to your opponent. Let's see here. Yeah, it's a 2/2 then. You deal 6 damage to your opponent. It becomes a 7/7. You thud it for 7 damage, and then it deals damage equal to its power, which is 7. So it's 7 + 7 + 6 + 1 damage. So it's lethal damage. So that is very, very likely to see play also in that deck, but it fits perfectly. And yeah, here's the Collision Colossus. It's a good card in by itself, which can deal with flying creatures, and it can also buff something and go for the kill. Domri Anarcho Bolas, I think we'll see play as a one-of, because it buffs most notably your what's called the Arcanist, so that he can play something for 2 from the graveyard, which is going to be very, very relevant in this deck. And it also gives you mana, creatures can't be countered, and something that fights. It's very good. Just have a 1-of. I would see no reason to not include a 1-of in a Jund deck. Shock, definitely, with the Arcanist, which just plays shocks for free whenever it attacks in. Giant Growth, likewise, because it's very, very good to buff your Butcher or to buff your Arcanist so they can play bigger spells. It's insanely good. Fungal Infection is another maybe card because it's a 1-mana card that you can play from your graveyard for free with your Arcanist, and it creates value whenever you play it. And then we're back. I think this deck is very, very likely to play. I don't know exactly in what form, but I think this very, very aggressive form with small creatures that gain something when they attack in is going to be the shape that Jund takes. Oh, now it's the 4th deck, and this is deck which I'm sure it's gonna see play, but I'm not sure how competitive it's gonna be. That's my only caveat. I don't really know with this deck how good it's actually gonna be. We're gonna have a look at it. Is it Grixis control again? No, it's just me loving Anger's Rampage. It's very, very strong, but it's the Amass deck, of course. And this fits perfectly into the deck because you need some good removal. It's probably going to be more of a control style deck more than an aggro deck. It's going to be very similar to the Drake's deck, I think, in how you build it. And that's very good removal. It fits perfectly in there. And the biggest reason maybe to play this type of deck is that you get the Amass board clear. Board clears are amazing, and if you can save some creatures and get some value out of it, just even better. Amass 2, then the army you amassed deals damage equal to its power to each non-army creature. So this just wipes the board for you. It's a board wipe. It works perfectly because it's for each to each non-army creature, so it leaves your amassed creatures left on the board. It is the card which kind of enables the archetype to even work, in my opinion. Then we have Dread or Invasion. 1 colorless and 1 black. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and you amass 1. So this is like a Bitter Blossom. A Bitter Blossom for Amass. It's worse, of course, than Bitter Blossom. Bitter Blossom was insane. It was a flying 1/1 every turn and you lost 1 life. This is worse. You just get to amass. Sometimes you just get buff 1 creature. Sometimes it's an Hadana's Climb. Sometimes it's a worse Bitter Blossom. But it does have a very relevant ability. Whenever a zombie token you control with power 6 or greater attacks, it gains lifelink until end of turn. And I think you can set it up with this deck. We're gonna see some other cards where you can, instantly get a very big token. And if you have Dreadhorde Invasion out, you can kind of count on getting that big life gain hit in from time to time to just stabilize. And that's how this deck stays alive, I think. Dreadhorde Invasion and the card that we saw before are in my opinion, the 2 reasons that this deck shall see play. Next card is Invade the City, which is also an enabler. These 3 cards will definitely be in the deck. The other cards, maybe, we'll see. Amass X, where X is the number of instants and sorcery cards in your graveyard. And this is another reason why we need all these instants and sorceries in our graveyard, so that we can invade the city, so that we can get a very big creature which has lifelink, attacks in, and gain all that life back that we have lost from all these Amass things that's been going on. Very solid card, and in that deck it just fits perfectly in every way. Grim Initiate, 1 red. First strike, when Grim Initiate dies, amass 1. I don't know exactly that this will see play, but if we have all these aggressive decks as we have right now with the mono blues and the mono whites and the mono greens, not super good, I guess, honestly. Maybe Lawn Elves or something. But I guess most decks is a very solid card, and that it has amass 1 is very good because it means that it stays relevant. At any point when it dies, it's at least buffed something in your Amass deck. Then we have Lazotep Plating, which is 1 colorless, 1 blue, amass 1. You and permanents you control gain hexproof until end of turn. This is not amazing, but it's an instant and it's amass. So you gain some value. Let's say you have no creatures out, you get a 1 run from this at instant speed, and your permanents gain hexproof until end of turn. So it's a way of saving you. It's also a way of saving your permanents. You can, save this up, and they can't deal with your permanents. Kind of like a counter spell, kind of like a dive down for the Amass deck. I think this will see play, but only in an Amass deck. Then we're Gleaming Overseer, and I'm a little bit on the fence on this guy. I think it's probably just gonna be more instants and sorcery rather than this guy, but it's decent for what it's worth. It's 1 colorless, 1 blue, 1 black. When Gleaming Overseer enters the battlefield, amass 1. It's on a good body, it's a 1/4, it can block most things. Zombie tokens you control have hexproof and menace. And this is kind of what makes him good. I don't care too much about the menace. I mean, it's decent, but giving things hexproof, and if you remember the old enchantment that gave it lifelink, you can have something that has lifelink and hexproof. That's insanely strong. So you're probably just putting this down to protect your Amass token, just growing that big army, and this guy is just one more thing they have to get rid of before they can get rid of your super amassed thing. And that's why it might see play. I'm not 100% sure that this will see play. It's borderline playable, I think. Next card is Crackling Drake, because it just fits perfectly. If you have a lot of instances and sorceries that you're cycling anyways, then maybe you want a Crackling Drake, because it's a very, very good card. Charter Course is another deck, or another card which fits perfectly into the Amass deck. So, and oh yeah, okay, Nicol Bolas also might be see play, because you have all the colors anyway, so might as well put in the best planeswalkers there. Yeah, that's this deck. Let's jump into the next deck. So now we're at the 5th deck, and now it's getting a little bit more speculative. I don't know exactly that this is gonna see play, but I think it's very, very good. And it's likely to play. We'll see. What I'm talking about is artifacts. Tesseract artifacts is what I would call this. Tesseract Master of the Bridge is what is most likely to see play in this archetype, because he's kind of the card which enables it. Unfortunately, it costs 6 mana, which is why I don't know that this will be played, but there is a couple of ramp spells, like for instance, we have the treasure map, which might make it so that you're able to actually cast your Tesseract, and which also synergizes very well with Tesseract, because it makes everything cost less. So let's read the Tesseract, shall we? Creatures and planeswalker spells you cast have affinity for artifacts. This means that they cost 1 colorless less for each artifact you have in play. So let's say you have 4 artifacts, 3 treasure tokens, and a, I don't know, Fountain of Renewal or something. That means all your Karns are for free, all your creatures, if you have some creature card that is an artifact, it will be able to play it for free. And also, we're gonna see a couple of very, very cool interactions with this. But what this essentially means is that you can alpha strike. You can put down a lot of things in the same turn, and you can just, you know, make a huge swing with Tesseract Master of the Bridge. And I think that's how it's going to be played. It has a +2, which deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of artifacts you control. You gain X life. It's decent, absolutely, when you put this down. If you have 4 artifacts, for instance, you gain 4 life, your opponent loses 4 life, and it puts him at a comfortable loyalty total, where he's probably not gonna die next turn. Then well, -3, return target artifact from your graveyard to your hand. Not super good, to be honest. Most artifacts don't even die, like the treasure map transforms. Maybe to return a Fountain of Renewal, but that's not super strong. I don't know. I don't really see that being super useful. And then we have the -8, exile the top 10 cards of your library, put all artifacts from among them, and put them onto the battlefield. It's decent, but then again, I think it's gonna be mostly treasure maps and small artifacts you're gonna play with this anyway, so it's not gonna, you know, be game-changing if you get the ultimate off. But on the other hand, it's very easy to get it off. Just +2 2 times, and then just go for the ultimate. So it's a very cool planeswalker. Of course, it's gonna see play with treasure map. Yeah, like you need these 2, at least these 2 in your deck to make it work. And then Karn Sign of Ursa, of course, because you can play it for free. If you have 4 artifacts, you can just alpha strike this down, immediately put this on plus counters. You have Teferi at 7 loyalty and Karn at 6 loyalty immediately that your opponent has to deal with, or they just take over the game. Or you can go for the -2, of course, and create a construct. That's another valid thing you can do. It has good abilities, very good synergy with the deck, and yes, we also have Karn, the Great Creator. It's 4 colorless, it's very hard to see. I'm gonna read it for you. Artifacts your opponents control. Activated abilities of artifacts your opponent control can't be activated. Probably doesn't matter at all. +1 until your next turn. Target a creature becomes an artifact with power and toughness equal to its converted mana cost. So you can turn your treasure map into a 2/2 or something, some artifacts into something. I don't know that that's super useful. It comes into play with 5 loyalty though, and what you want to do with this, why this works so darn good with Tesseract, is that you can go -2. You may choose an artifact card that you own from outside the game and put that card into your hands. What you can do with this, let's say you have this and Tesseract. Put down Tesseract, you immediately put down Karn, and then you search for an artifact creature or something in your sideboard, because creatures cost 1 less for each artifact you control, and you can immediately put that into place. You can immediately -2, search for something, and immediately put it out. So that's super strong, so you get a bum 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 bum. if you get the Tesseract out. So it's that alpha striking that I talked about. Search for something, immediately be able to play it out because it costs 0. And you can also search for things which are very good. They're very good hateful artifacts if you need to deal with like graveyard, if you need to deal with tokens. If you need to deal with a lot of Galtas or something, you can search for transmogrifying. Well, you can find anything really. Yeah. And since you can just search for it, a very, very good toolbox card, and it works amazingly well with Tesseract. Next card is Liliana's Triumph. I think it fits perfectly into the colors, and it's probably something like this that you want in your deck anyways. Karn's Bastion makes you able to proliferate. If you have all these planeswalkers, then why not proliferate? You don't need too much mana. I mean, you need a couple of blue and a black, but more than that, not too much. So maybe you can get away with a couple of Karn's Bastion, I think. Kaz Ghost Form is another amazing card. If you put it on Tesseract, you can surely never get rid of it. Put it on anything. Honestly, put it on anything and it will be amazing in that deck. Yeah, I love this card, and I'm probably gonna, mention it a couple more times. We'll see. Then we have Davril Rogue Shadow Mage. I don't know that it's gonna see play there, but it could work. Like, it's kind of a Super Frenzy style deck, because Planeswalkers cost less for each artifact. You can maybe play this out for 1 black. If you put the Ghost Form on, you can keep discarding their entire hand, maybe. Mobilized District becomes a 3/3 citizen creature with vigilance until end of turn. It costs 4, but it's still a land, and this ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature and planeswalker you control. So if you go for the kind of Super Friends route, where you have a lot of planeswalkers with 2 different cards and 1 Tesseract and maybe the guy with discards, then Mobilized District can be a way of maybe protecting your planeswalker or being even a win con in that deck. So, and it kind of fits this style of deck where you don't need all the colored mana. And that's pretty much this deck. Let's just jump to the next deck. So here is the 6th deck. And it's another deck which I don't know that it's gonna see play, but it seems so darn likely. The reason is we have never seen a deck like this really before in Standard. I think this card right here just enables the entire archetype so darn well, and I've been dying to play with Saurin. I think it's an amazing card, amazing design, everything. It's just everything that I want in a Planeswalker. Is this Saurin guy. 2 colorless, 1 white, 1 black. As long as it's your turn, creatures and planeswalker you control have lifelink. This is essentially the reason to play this. It has a couple of other useful abilities, such as the +2. It does 1 damage to target player or planeswalker. Doesn't matter too much, but it's mostly just a way of not getting killed, because he's like an enchantment. You put him out, and if he happens to survive for a long time, then you probably win the game, because everything you control have lifelink. So yeah, that's just insane. Then you have the -X, return target creature card with the commander mana cost X from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature is a vampire in addition to its other types. So it's a little bit unfortunate that it can't return planeswalkers, but it can at least return creatures, and something like a Lich, for instance, is very nice to return with a Saurin. So too is a Adante Vanguard, which also is the same colors, fits very well. You can also do Resplendent Angel. So many good targets that you can return with this. So yeah, this is kind of the card that enables the entire archetype, in my opinion. Next card, Gideon Blackblade, another perfect fit for this card. It's a 4/4 indestructible, because you're probably gonna want to play Kaya's Wrath in this deck anyway. So you want a lot of indestructible creatures, just Wrath over them and have lifelink on anything. This is lifelink, indestructible. We already talked about this card. It's an amazing card, and it fits just perfectly into this archetype. Resplendent Angel, very good as Saurin. You can bring him back from the graveyard. You give lifelink to him, so whenever you get 5 or more life, you're gonna get you that 4/4 angel. That's a perfect fit for the deck in every possible way. Kaya's Wrath is another sweeper. Of course, it kills the Resplendent Angel, so it's not always gonna be the best. But if you have a Resplendent Angel out and you're able to trigger it and return, then you won anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And it's the only creature in that deck archetype which would get killed by Kaya's Wrath. Everything else would have been indestructible anyway, so would not matter. Adante Vanguard, 1 colorless, 1 white. You've seen this before. I don't probably need to read it. So it gets +2/+0 when you attack. The important part is that it's indestructible, doesn't die to Kaya's Wrath. Good to return with Saurin. Very good to have lifelink on. Solid, very good card. Liliana's Triumph, amazing removal. Bright colors. Gideon's Triumph, another amazing removal. And since we're probably gonna play like 3 or 4 Gideons anyway, why not have this? Target opponent sacrifices a creature that attacked or blocked this turn. If you control Gideon Planeswalker, that player sacrifices 2 of those creatures instead. So it's just very, very good removal. Phylactery Lich, I talked about it before. If you've seen it in my videos, fits perfectly into the archetype. Cast Ghost Form, amazing on everything. Amazing on Resplendent, amazing on all the small creatures. everything. Everything is great with Kai's Ghost form, and yeah. The more I see this card, the more I just want to include it in everything. That's how good I think it is. And then we're back. What do you think? Do you think this will be a thing? Leave a comment in the description. We're gonna go to the next deck right now. So now we're down to the 7th deck, and now it's getting a little bit more speculative, and I know you're gonna say it's just you who thinks it's gonna be a thing, but maybe we're allowed to dream a little bit, and maybe it's gonna be a mono black deck. And sure, I want my Liliana's Triumph. It's probably gonna be one of the best cards in the deck in a mono black deck. It's insanely strong. And mono black deck, I mean, a mono black deck, you can already build it and it's already decently strong. But I think it might even get a little bit stronger with War of the Spark. The only problem is that maybe the other decks are also getting stronger, so we'll see. Then we have Liliana Dreadhorde General, which I think could fit perfectly into a black theme, because if your creatures dies, doesn't matter too much in black usually. You can usually get around that in many ways. And having a kind of a semi-sweeper with your opponent sacrificing 2 creatures, you drawing all these cards, it's just amazing value. It's probably just going to be a 1 of, maybe a 2 of, because it's 6 mana. But it's just so darn strong. And I love Liliana. I love her so much. Next card, Karnstein Mercer. It already fits perfectly into a black deck because of what it does. And you're probably going to run artifacts anyways. You've seen this in my deck. It's not too much to talk about. Conjugator likewise fits perfectly into a black deck. If you create a lot of mana, you can search for something very interesting with the minus ability. It's a planeswalker which your opponent kind of needs to deal with, because else he tutors for too much stuff for you. And you can also maybe find a tricky way to use the +1, so I think it fits in there. Dreadhorde Invasion, it's another card which actually black gets to use. I don't know that you have a really good way to utilize this if you're not Amass, but I think it's decent. Like, it puts down a 1/1 body on the board every turn, so it's kind of like a Bitter Blossom to me. I don't know that you need to go full Amass to make this work. Maybe you can just have this out and maybe have some big zombies out, and it will maybe work. I don't know. As I said, now we're getting into very speculative territory, but I wanted to, it's a mono black channel. I really wanted to feature mono black, and I wanted to really dive into those cards that might be good there. Davriel Rogue Shadow Mage is another card which I feel could very much work in a mono black archetype. I don't know that it's strong enough. It's a little bit slow when it comes into play. The only thing it does is that your opponent discards a card. It's going to maybe be horrible against aggro decks, because they're just going to kill it immediately, and all it did was, having your opponent discard a card. But I love the art, I love the style, I love the discard theme. Maybe it can just work. I just have hopes for this guy. Cast Ghost form. I mentioned it so many times, you're probably tired of it, but of course it fits, of course. Obnixilis Cruelty, 2 colorless, 1 black, target creature -5/-5 until end of turn. If it would die, exile it instead. Deals with everything, deals with your opponent's Lich if they happen to play the Lich deck. I just love that mono black gets more, or black in general gets more access to removal, and even in the common slot for all you free-to players out there. It's a great removal. Treasure Map, still amazing in the mono black archetype. So too is Fountain of Renewal. Interplanet Beacon. Now we have a couple of planeswalkers. We might be able to do something where we actually gain life from Interplanet Beacon instead of Fountain of Renewal. I'm not sure we're gonna be able to do that, but it's just something that black needs. More good life gain, and maybe Interplanet Beacon is just the thing that we need here. I don't know. And also we can get away with having a lot of colorless mana. It doesn't really matter too much in a mono black deck if you're not running Lich, for instance. If you're running more of a Super Friend style, it might work. Massacre Girl is a card I know a lot of people have been very hyped about. I don't know. It's very low down on how likely it is to see play, in my opinion. It's more of a, sometimes it's gonna be a dream come true, but I mean, it's gonna be a 4/4 menace for 5 against every control deck. And any mono green deck and any Gruul deck is not gonna do anything against. The only way to get this to work, I think, is to set it up yourself. You play a lot of Burg Rats and small creatures, you have them die, and the Massacre Girls just feeds off your creatures and it kills your opponent's creatures also. Maybe it will work. It's a fun card, but I think it's just a little bit too weak. If it would have costed a little bit less, if this body would have been a little bit stronger, I think they could have pushed it a little bit further. I think it's just slightly on the weaker side of things. And then Obnixilis, the Hate Twisted, which is a 5 mana planeswalker, which is not super duper strong. It can destroy a couple of creatures, of course, but your opponent will draw cards from it, so it's more something that you want to target your own stuff with, in my opinion. Like target your own lich, for instance, and you draw 2 cards and it doesn't destroy it. Or you can target something like a burglar rat. It's decent, but it's absolutely on the weaker side of things, and I will probably not see play, but at least it's a new tool for the mono black. And then we're back to the Leona's Triumph. Now we're going to the last and final deck. And yes, this last deck is a bit of a fun one. I know it's probably not gonna see play. I don't know. I just think it's enable an entire new archetype of deck with 1 card here. And I just wanted to mention it because I think it's very fun. I built a deck around this, kind of like this, and I think that this card just fits perfectly into it. It kind of enables the archetype because it makes it go over the top if you can get to that mana. But it's very restricted mana, and that's why it might not be as strong as I would love it to be. The card that I'm talking about is Bolas Citadel. You might not have seen this card. It's 3 colorless, 3 black. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play the top card of your library. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its converted mana cost rather than pay its mana cost. So essentially free spells forever as long as your spells can pay for themselves with the life that they gain. So what we want to do with this, of course, is play things such as Night of Autumn. It gains you 4 life, so you get a 2/1 and you gain 1 life for this, essentially, because you pay the 3 mana with 3 life, but you gain 4 life, so you're up 1 life and you get the 2/1. Moment of Craving doesn't cost you anything and gives a creature -2/-2. Because that's how we need to think about these cards. Like, of course, these cards need to be useful and good by themselves, but also when you get the Citadel out, that's when it's like taken over the top, because just going off like just playing card after card after card. I think Rascal's Contemption also work. It exiles a creature or planeswalker and you gain 2 life, so essentially it costs 2 life to exile something, a creature or a planeswalker, and I think that makes it good enough to fit in that kind of deck. Revitalize draws you a card and gains you 1 life for nothing. Because you just pay it for free, and it fits in that deck anyways. A Johnny Great Target also fits into this deck, because it can immediately gain you 3 life. Of course, first you lose 4 life, then you gain 3 life backs. So we essentially lost 1 life to get 6 loyalty planeswalker, which also has very good abilities on it. Lyra Dawnbringer is another good card. Sure, it costs 5 to play out with Bolas, but it doesn't matter because it's gonna pay itself back. It's gonna gain all that life back very soon with its lifelink. And Healing Grace is very, very good because you can prevent something and gain 3 life. So it's essentially you gain 2 life for nothing. It's very, very good. And then Tolsimir, Friend of 2 Wolves. Maybe Tolarian Academy will appear in that deck. I don't know. One Tolsimir, Friend to Wolves enters the battlefield. Create Voya, Friend to Elves. So you get 2 3/3s, and then you get a wolf which fights something and gains you 3 life. So essentially this costs 2 mana for 2 3/3s. That's pretty good. Pretty good deal if you can get it off with the Bolas Citadel. And that's pretty much the deck. So what do you think? Have I missed some deck? Do you think there's an archetype that's gonna pop up that's been enabled? Leave that in the comment sections. I also wanted to thank everyone for all the support in this month. I mean, the channel has grown exponentially. We're already at soon to be 7,000 subscribers. It's amazing. In just 1 month we've achieved this. Essentially, it's insane. I also want to thank everyone who has been supporting me on Twitch. I've received a lot of kind words, donations, views, followings, everything. Also a special shout out to Alexis, which has donated every stream. I'm very, very thankful, and just what keeps this channel alive is all your support. So thank you so much for watching. See you tomorrow with more arena gameplay.